Guys, it's time to find out, how does the MEATER stack up against the brand new TempSpike? Let's find out by cooking a brisket right now. Now, before we can properly test out these thermometers, we are going to have to prep up our brisket. So the first thing I like to do is make the edges as smooth and straight as possible. Now, don't worry, none of this meat's going to go to waste. I'm going to use it for other stuff, sausages, tallows, all kind of stuff. So no worry on that end. But again, I like to just run my boning knife down the side here and get a straight cut so that I get nice even slices. Now that I've got it reasonably straight on the sides, I'm going to go ahead and trim off this fat and silver skin on the top. This stuff isn't going to render out. It's just going to create kind of like tough connective tissue, so you might as well just go ahead and get rid of it. Now that I've got that where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and start getting rid of some of this fat up here. There's a whole lot of fat in between the flat and the point, as I'm sure most of you guys know. And that is not going to cook out. It's not going to be good. There's no point leaving it at all whatsoever. Now, I do have a video that I'll link below where I do an in-depth explanation on trimming a brisket. So I'm not going to get into all that right here, but as you can see, it's just basically you're trimming out that fat vein. And this is basically what I had in mind for this trim. I think that this brisket is pretty ready to go. I think it's perfect for what we're doing. I might trim a little bit of fat off the bottom here. I might not. I'm not really too worried about extra fat on the bottom. General rule of thumb is that you leave about 1/4 inch of fat. I'm going to trim this off here because it's just going to burn up. But the general rule is you leave about 1/4 inch of fat. Sometimes I leave more. I'm not sure that it really matters all that much, depending on what you want your end product to be. But I don't mind trimming a little fat off once I have my piece of brisket on the plate. So I'm going to season my non-fat side first because I'm going to leave my fat side up for this cook. And I'm going to start with just a basic SPG rub. It's 2 parts salt, 2 parts pepper, 1 part garlic. You can make it at home or you can use your favorite SPG rub. It doesn't matter. But we want to make sure that we get a good coverage because to me, this is where the bulk of the flavor is going to come on this brisket. Now guys, don't be perverts, alright? I'm never going to make YouTube rewind if you are, but I am going to grab my Skull and Mortar OG rub, and now I'm just going to go over the top of this. What this is going to do is it's going to help make a nice deep mahogany color, and it's also going to add a lot of good peppery notes to this brisket as well. Now I'm going to take some of the God Save the Queen rub, and hopefully it'll be available again at some point in the near future, but right now it's not. So you can use, whatever, a Montreal steak seasoning or any sort of thick, coarse ground seasoning. And what this does is it adds nice salt and pepper pops, but it also creates a nice texture for your bark. Now once you do that, we're going to flip it over and then we're going to get to work. It's the same process on the fat side. Alright guys, it's time to get down to the thermometers. This is going to be the MEATER Plus, but we're only going to compare MEATER functionality to the ThermoSpike. So first off, we got the ThermoSpike. We're going to go ahead and pop it out and get it started up here. I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm definitely an amateur here, but we're going to go ahead and get this into the meat. Takes a little bit of effort to get it in there, but once we get it moving, it still takes a little effort. But I've had a lot of trouble, getting the spike in the hole for a long time, so that's not really anything that surprises me. So now we have our MEATER, and we're going to go ahead and get our MEATER here about 1 inch or so away. I think that should be far enough away that they shouldn't interfere with each other. And that kind of keeps the meat depth about the same, so that way, everything should measure out fairly evenly. I skipped our standard grill lighting sequence, but it's really like midnight. I'm going to cook this at 200 degrees overnight and then probably amp the temperature up to 225 in the morning. I'm going to cook this very low and slow because I really want to make sure that we test the batteries of both of these thermometers. Now it's about 9 o'clock the next morning. You might see I got these grill grates in here. I'm doing a couple experiments with them because I want to do some videos on them later. But we've had it on about 9 hours at this point at 200 degrees. We're going to go ahead and wrap it in the peach paper. Now it's only about 160 right now. So we still got plenty of cook time left on this. Again, we're going for very low and slow. I really want to max out these batteries. Now that we have it wrapped up, we're going to put our thermometers back into it in approximately the same locations. We're going to get this back on, and we are going to amp the temperature up to 225 degrees. There it is, guys, our brisket. This thing cooked for 20.5 hours. That's ridiculous. We cooked it at a super low temperature at 200 degrees overnight. 200 degrees. We bumped it up to 225 and let it ride. I did bump it up to 250 later. Now, while we did have a brisket cook, and we do want to check this out and see how it turned out, the key component of this video, we wanted to compare the TempSpike to the MEATER. And for fairness sakes, we're only going to compare the features that they share, right? So obviously we're not going to take into consideration that this one has extra probes, because obviously that's going to make it a little more versatile for certain things. But the TempSpike, first off, I like that this is plastic. I think it's kind of cool looking. It's got a magnetic backing, so you can put this thing anywhere. That's very nice. You can put it on the side of your grill. You can put it on the side of your refrigerator, which is where I keep mine when I'm not using it. It's also handy when you're trying to plug it in and charge it. So that magnetic piece is nice. The MEATER doesn't have that. It's got this stand, it's a block. It is what it is. It's great for sitting on a table, but not much else. So that's not super versatile. Now, as far as design of the probe goes, here are actual probes. Pretty similar. This is the TempSpike. This is the MEATER probe. They come down to a similar point. This one might be a little sharper, even, but they both have the rings. They both have the similar heads up here, just different shapes. Really, as far as an even goes, I would give this, I would say they run about even here. Very similar. So that's 1 point for TempSpike. This point is going to be a 0 to each of them because they're pretty even. Now, as far as the apps, I'll edit in some footage. Both apps are pretty easy to use. There is one thing that I like, and it could be user error on my part, about the MEATER, is the MEATER has the ability to set extra alarms in the cook. I had to set up 2 cooks, one my 165 cook and then one for my 205. That could have been user error. So I'll mess around with that more. So I am going to give that one to MEATER. Now, as far as setting up one cook, the TempSpike was nice. It had a lot of options. It had a lot of things in there that were nice as well. And if I could figure out that alarm thing, which again might be user error, I probably would give that to TempSpike. But because of that reason alone, I'm going to give it to MEATER. Now, as far as the actual temperature, the MEATER ran about 3 degrees less than the TempSpike, which was about 2 degrees less than my Control Therm Pro, which I know is pretty on point. So there was a big difference between the MEATER and the Therm Pro versus the TempSpike. So for that reason alone, again, I feel pretty confident with this. I'm going to give the actual monitoring of the heat to the TempSpike. So again, that's another point for the TempSpike. As far as battery life, both of these probes lasted the entire 20.5 hour cook, and I did not receive a low battery from either one of them. So again, as far as I can tell, it's pretty even. Both of these have a great battery life. So I'm gonna zero that out. That's pretty even on that front. The only other thing, now we won't compare the Wi-Fi on this because this doesn't have Wi-Fi. This does, which is obviously a really awesome feature. I hope that that's something that TempSpike can add into their repertoire later. But as far as Bluetooth connection, far and away the TempSpike has smashed the MEATER. So if you're going, if you got the more basic MEATER, if you're looking at the more basic MEATER versus the TempSpike, the TempSpike won. The TempSpike got Bluetooth all the way down my driveway. The MEATER is solid, but the MEATER does drop Bluetooth connection a lot. It does happen. It's a few years old. This is a much newer piece of equipment. So I would expect the Bluetooth strengthening there, right? So as far as that goes, I'm gonna give the Bluetooth to the TempSpike. Again, if we were comparing Wi-Fi's, if we were putting that into play, the point would have to go to the MEATER because the Wi-Fi is a very, very convenient feature that I hope the TempSpike adds in later. Guys, but now it is time to get down to what you probably really came for, right? You want to see how the brisket turned out. So let's pop this bad boy open. Here's our brisket. Now you can see some of those grill grate marks in it. Again, I'm gonna be working on a grill grate video later, but I'm kind of just testing it out right now to see how it changes some other cooks as well. So let's cut into this bad boy using our Dow Strong Omega Series slicing knife. You can find a link to everything I use in the description below. It does help the channel. Let's take a look at our brisket. Is it juicy? You tell me, you guys. Let's take this big piece right here. Let's check our bend. Yes, sir. That's a thick piece and it's bending nice. Let's see if it pops when we pull it apart. Yep. Pops right apart. And guys, the most important part of the brisket test is, oh wait, hold on. Check out that smoke ring right there, looking nice, looking pristine. As you can tell, we got a good bark on it. Let's give it a taste. It's so good. It's so beefy. It's so tender. And it really was just such a basic cook. Again, proving that it's not always the most difficult, complicated technical cooks that are the best. Sometimes it's literally just the most basic things in life, right? So we tested out the TempSpike. We tested out the MEATER. We're gonna give it to the TempSpike. There will be a link down below for your purchase of both. Both are fine pieces of equipment. But again, I'm gonna give it to that TempSpike. Come on. Guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Get a channel membership, man. Let's be buds. Check me out on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Links are in the description.